All India Radio presents Morning News. Good morning. I'm Anuja Kumar and with me is Vaibhav Srivastav. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate prestigious Raisina Dialogue today. Expert panel of Central Drug Regulator recommends emergency use authorization of Russian vaccine Sputnik V. Over 37 lakh doses of COVID vaccine administered on the second day of Tika Utsav across the country. Negative RT-PCR test report mandatory to enter Kumbh Mela. Health Ministry issues guidelines to prevent corona in Mela. Airlines not to provide meals in domestic flights with a duration of less than 2 hours in view of rising corona cases. Sushil Chandra to take over as Chief Election Commissioner of India today. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to hold talks with his French counterpart in New Delhi today. Traditional New Year festivals of Ugadi, Gudi Padwa, Chaitra Shukladi, Cheti Chand, Vaishakhi, Vishu, Putandu, Vaishakhadi and Bohag Bihu being celebrated in different parts of the country. And Punjab Kings beat Rajasthan Royals by 4 runs in IPL cricket. As the number of COVID cases are on the rise again, we appeal to our listeners not to lower the guard, take all the precautions and all those above 45 years to get vaccinated without any hesitation. Stay safe and protected by following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki doori for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. And now, the news in detail. The 6th edition of the prestigious Raisina Dialogue will be inaugurated today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the dialogue through a video message. President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, will also join the inaugural session as chief guests. Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, will also participate in the conference in one of the subsequent sessions. The 4-day dialogue will be held virtually. It is India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics held annually since 2016. It is jointly organized by the Ministry of External Affairs and the Observer Research Foundation. The theme for the 2021 edition is #ViralWorld, Outbreaks, Outliers and Out of Control. Over the course of 4 days, the dialogue will have panel conversations on 5 thematic pillars. Whose multilateralism, reconstructing the UN and beyond, securing and diversifying supply chains, global public bads, holding actors and nations to account, infodemic, navigating a no-truth world in the age of Big Brother, and the green stimulus, investing in gender, growth and development. More from our correspondent.
Over the course of 4 days, the dialogue will have panel conversations on 5 themes like multilateralism, supply chains, infodemic, and the green stimulus. The 2021 edition will have 50 sessions with participation of 150 speakers from 50 countries and multilateral organizations. More than 2,000 attendees have pre-registered from over 80 countries, and a large number of participants are likely to join the dialogue through various social media platforms. The event will also see presence of former Prime Minister of Australia Anthony Abbott and former Prime Minister of New Zealand Helen Clark. Foreign ministers of Portugal, Slovenia, Romania, Singapore, Nigeria, Japan, Italy, Sweden, Australia, Kenya, Chile, Maldives, Iran, Qatar and Bhutan will also participate. In the past 6 years, the Raisina Dialogue has grown in stature and profile to emerge as a leading global conference on international affairs. It attracts leading minds from the global strategic and policy-making community to discuss broader foreign policy and strategic issues facing the world. Anupam Mishra, AR News, Delhi.
Expert panel of the Central Drug Regulator DCGA has recommended emergency use authorization to the Russian vaccine Sputnik V. After necessary approval from the DCGA, Sputnik V will be the 3rd vaccine to get emergency use authorization from the drug regulator after Covishield and Covaxin. The clinical trial of the vaccine in India is being done by Dr. Reddy's lab. Hyderabad-based Dr. Reddy's lab has also inked an agreement with the Russian Direct Investment Fund, RDIF, for supply of the Russian vaccine in India. The subject expert committee of the Indian drug regulator in its last meeting on 1st of April had asked Dr. Reddy's to submit data on how the shot activates the body's immune response against the coronavirus. RDIF has claimed an effectiveness of 91.6% for the Sputnik V vaccine. Dr. Reddy's had applied for emergency use of Sputnik V in February this year.
India's COVID vaccination drive has gained remarkable momentum after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's clarion call to observe Tika Utsav from the 11th to the 14th of this month. On the second day of the special vaccination drive, the nation witnessed a record administration of over 37 lakh doses till 8 p.m. yesterday evening. The day also registered a substantial increase in the number of total COVID vaccination centres engaged in the work of administering vaccine shots. The number of COVID vaccination centres in the country increased from nearly 45,000 to around 71,000 functional centres, registering a growth of over 26,000 vaccination centres in a single day. With many workplace vaccination centres also witnessing heavy turnout of beneficiaries, the cumulative number of vaccine doses administered in the country now stands at over 10 crore 82 lakh 92,000. Widening the scope of vaccination from the 1st of this month, under the current phase, everyone above the age of 45 is being vaccinated. The Health Ministry has informed that in a short span of time, nearly 7 crore 60 lakh people above the age of 45 years have already been administered the first shot of the COVID-19 vaccine, whereas in the same age group, over 30 lakh people have been fully vaccinated after receiving their second dose of vaccination. Only those devotees with negative RT-PCR test report will be allowed to enter the ongoing Kumbh Mela in Haridwar. The test should be done 72 hours prior to the date of visit to the Mela site. The Union Health Ministry has issued standard operating procedures SOPs on preventive measures to contain the spread of COVID-19 during the Kumbh Mela. As per the SOPs, Uttarakhand government will follow registration of the devotees and a compulsory medical certification. The vulnerable population aged more than 65 years, pregnant women, children below the age of 10 years, and those with underlying comorbid conditions will be discouraged to attend the Kumbh Mela. A large number of devotees from across the country took a dip in the holy river Ganga on the occasion of Somvati Amavas yesterday at the Haridwar Mahakumbh.
No meals will be provided in domestic flights with a duration of less than 2 hours in view of the new strain of COVID-19. The airlines may serve pre-packed snacks and meals where the flight duration is 2 hours and more. The Civil Aviation Ministry has reviewed serving of meals on board flights and issued fresh guidelines in this regard. The service of in-flight meals will be staggered among the adjacent seats as far as possible. The airlines have already been directed to serve tea, coffee and alcoholic beverages in disposable cans, bottles and glasses. There will be no pouring service. Defence Research and Development Organization DRDO will set up a COVID-19 hospital with 500 beds equipped with ICU facilities in few days in Delhi cantonment. The doctors would be provided by both military and paramilitary forces for treating patients. In view of rising COVID-19 cases in the national capital, the facility will help treating the serious patients. This will increase the bed capacity in the city.
In an interview to All India Radio, Dr. Samiran Panda of the Indian Council for Medical Research, ICMR, said that a combination of vaccination and COVID protocols will help us win the battle against coronavirus.
वैक्सीन हेजिटेंसी को पीछे रख के हमें दुविधा नहीं रखना चाहिए. हमें आगे बढ़ना है और टीका लगानी है. टीका संक्रमण को नहीं रोकता है, डिजीज को एडवांस स्टेज में वो ना जाए, इसी का ऊपर प्रभाव रखते हैं. जो सावधानी के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं वो संक्रमण को रोक लेते हैं. ये दोनों मिलके फेस मास्क और वैक्सीनेशन, और सोसाइटी में हम इसको 70% या 80% में ये जो व्यवहारिक परिवर्तन जिसको कहा जाता है वो हम कर लेते हैं, तो जरूर ये जंग कोविड-19 का खिलाफ जो जंग हम लड़ने का कोशिश कर रहे हैं उसमें कामयाब रहेंगे.
Amid rising corona infection in Chhattisgarh, the state government has fixed new rates for the treatment of COVID patients in private hospitals. These rates have come into force with immediate effect. More from our Raipur correspondent.
According to the revised rates released by the Chhattisgarh government for the treatment of COVID patients in private hospitals, a fee of 6,200 rupees per day has been fixed for the treatment of moderate patients. Private hospitals have been directed to charge not more than 12,000 rupees for the treatment of serious patients and 17,000 rupees per day for very critical patients. These rates include ICU facilities with ventilators. The cost of treatment in private hospitals will have to be borne by the patient himself. Besides, it has also been decided by the Chhattisgarh government that out of the total beds available in registered private hospitals where COVID patients are being treated, 20% of beds will be reserved for the beneficiaries of Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana and state government's Dr. Khub Chand Baghel Health Support Scheme. Meanwhile, a new portal has been launched by the State Health Department to give information about empty beds in COVID hospitals. Through this portal, one can get information about the number of beds available for the treatment of corona infection in COVID care centers, COVID hospitals, and registered private hospitals in all districts. Vikalp Shukla, AIR News, Raipur.
The Madhya Pradesh government has ordered a corona curfew in the state capital Bhopal to counter the recent surge in COVID-19 cases. The curfew has been enforced from 9 p.m. of 12th of April till 6 a.m. of April 19th. Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan, while interacting with the media, has said that the crisis of remdesivir injection will be over in the next 2 to 3 days. There is an adequate arrangement of oxygen in the state and it is being reviewed every day. More from our Bhopal correspondent.
As per the order, essential services will be exempted from the corona curfew, including healthcare services, the COVID-19 vaccination, exams, health services, travelers going to airport, bus stops and railway stations, and other essential services. Earlier this month, the Madhya Pradesh government decided to enforce night curfews and weekend lockdowns in parts of the state, witnessing a surge in new cases of infection. Madhya Pradesh on Monday reported 6,489 fresh COVID cases, while 37 patients succumbed to the infection. Pooja Pivardhan, AIR News, Bhopal.
The Odisha government has directed all district collectors to reactivate the health facilities used earlier for COVID-19 patients in the first phase of the pandemic. In letter to the district collectors, the government has said that private hospitals having 30 or more beds must also keep at least 10% of the available beds reserved for COVID-19 patients. More from our Bhubaneswar correspondent.
The fresh advisory comes amid rising number of COVID-19 cases, with the state's active caseload fast approaching the 10,000 mark. On the other hand, a little over 140,000 beneficiaries were vaccinated against COVID-19 yesterday in 824 session sites across the state. The fresh advisory comes amid rising number of COVID-19 cases, with the state's active caseload fast approaching the 10,000 mark. On the other hand, a little over 140,000 beneficiaries were vaccinated against COVID-19 yesterday in 824 session sites across the state. The beneficiaries include about 80,000 people above 45 years of age, with half that number being senior citizens. Meanwhile, the state has requested the center to supply at least 25 lakh doses of Covishield for 10 days to meet the shortfall in the ongoing vaccination drive. Girish Chandra Das, AIR News, Bhubaneswar.
In Jharkhand, the number of active COVID-19 cases continue to rise after a record number of 2,366 positive cases were confirmed yesterday, taking the total figures of active COVID-19 cases to 15,343. There has been a sharp decline of about 10% in the recovery rate in the last 10 days. Presently, the recovery rate has come down to 88.30%. More details from our Ranchi correspondent.
With the growing number of positive cases, the State Health Secretary K.K. Sohn has instructed all private hospitals of the state to reserve 50% of their beds for treatment of COVID-19 patients. The sudden rise in the number of corona cases has affected the arrangements and infrastructure at the government health centers. There has been shortage in adequate number of beds in COVID care centers, government hospitals and health centers. Jharkhand High Court has also taken cognizance in this regard and directed the state government to provide all essential medical facilities and treatment to COVID-19 patients without fail. Shilpi, AIR News, Ranchi.
In Puducherry, mass vaccination drive launched by Lieutenant Governor Dr. Tamilisai Soundararajan has gained momentum with a total number of 17,013 persons inoculated in the last 48 hours. More from our correspondent.
Puducherry witnessed a sudden spike of COVID-19 positive cases in the last few days. The Lieutenant Governor Dr. Tamilisai Soundararajan held a series of review meetings and planned for the special vaccination drive throughout the UT. The 4-day COVID vaccination Thiruvilla has been launched on April 11th. Arrangements have been made in 100 places, including all government hospitals, primary health centers and selected government schools to inoculate the people above 45 years. April 14th, that is still tomorrow, the vaccination Thiruvilla will be held. In total, 96,388 persons administered vaccines. So far, no adverse complaints from those who took the vaccination. Administration of corona vaccines has been increased in all the hospitals besides the rapid and RT-PCR test in view of the emerging situation. At present, a total number of 2,594 persons are being treated for the infection. Chandramohan, Air News, Puducherry.
In Tamil Nadu, the number of COVID-positive cases has almost touched 7,000 yesterday, with Chennai alone counting for more than 2,000. Chief Minister Palanisamy took stock of the COVID situation in the state along with his cabinet colleagues at the Secretariat. The Chief Minister, in his statement after meeting, said the public should get vaccinated in nearby hospitals and asked the management of industries, restaurants and the markets to arrange for vaccination of their employees. A report from our Chennai correspondent.
With an appeal to people to avoid crowded public places, the Chief Minister wanted everyone to follow the government's standard operating procedures. He asked the officials to trace a minimum of 25 to 30 contacts of the infected people to break the chain of spread. The government also insisted that 90,000 RT-PCR tests should be conducted in a day. As many as 1,309 containment zones were identified as on 10th of this month. A high-level team under the leadership of Revenue and Disaster Management Department Secretary and another team at district level will monitor the COVID situation in the state. People have been asked not to venture outside their homes without masks. The decision to allow 100 people for wedding and 50 people for funerals will also be strictly followed. Joy, AIR News, Chennai.
You are listening to the morning news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate the prestigious Raisina Dialogue today. Expert panel of Central Drug Regulator recommends emergency use authorization of the Russian vaccine Sputnik V. Over 37 lakh doses of COVID vaccine administered on the second day of the Tika Utsav across the country. Negative RT-PCR test report mandatory to enter Kumbh Mela. Health Ministry issues guidelines to prevent corona in the Mela. Airlines not to provide meals in domestic flights with a duration of less than 2 hours in view of rising corona cases. Sushil Chandra to take over as the Election Commissioner of India today. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to hold talks with his French counterpart in New Delhi today. Traditional New Year festivals of Ugadi, Gudi Padva, Chaitra Shukladi, Cheti Chand, Vaishakhi, Vishu, Puthandu, Vaishakhri and Bohag Bihu being celebrated in different parts of the country, and Punjab Kings beat Rajasthan Royals by 4 runs in IPL cricket. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle @AIR News Alerts.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has paid rich tributes to those martyred in the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, which took place on 13th of April 1919. Mr. Modi said the courage, heroism and sacrifice of the martyrs give strength to every Indian. The Election Commissioner, Sushil Chandra, will take over as the Chief Election Commissioner of India today. President Ramnath Kovind appointed Mr. Chandra as Chief Election Commissioner yesterday. Mr. Chandra will succeed Sunil Arora, who demitted office yesterday. Before his appointment to the Election Commission, Mr. Chandra was the chairman of Central Board of Direct Taxes, CBDT. Polling will be held in 3 districts of North Bengal on 17th of this month. 1 seat at Kalimpong, 5 seats at Darjeeling and 7 seats in Jalpaiguri district will go to polls in the 5th phase. A total of 104 candidates, including 12 women, are in the fray from 3 districts in this phase. Several leaders have intensified campaigning to woo the voters. Senior BJP leader and Home Minister Amit Shah will address an election rally at Lebong today. Our correspondent has filed a report on the prestigious Siliguri seat.
Located at the foothills of the Himalayas, Siliguri has very strategic as well as trading importance for West Bengal and the Northeast region. 10 candidates, including 2 women, are in the fray for this high-profile seat. There are 224,000 voters at Siliguri, where around 30% are non-Bengali speaking population. Senior CPIM leader Ashok Bhattacharya would seek re-election from Siliguri. He is facing his former colleague Shankar Ghosh, who is contesting in the BJP ticket. The ruling TMC has given ticket to Om Prakash Mishra. Development, better infrastructure, employment generation are some of the election issues that have been raised in Siliguri Assembly seat. Manas Pratim Sharma, AR News, Siliguri.
The Central Bureau of Investigation (CBI) has summoned former Maharashtra Home Minister Anil Deshmukh for questioning tomorrow in connection with the corruption allegations levelled against him by former Mumbai Police Commissioner Parambir Singh. Deshmukh had resigned on April the 5th from his post after the Bombay High Court directed the CBI to conduct preliminary investigations into allegations against him. The CBI has summoned Deshmukh after recording the statements of his 2 personal assistants yesterday.
French Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs Jean-Yves Le Drian will hold talks with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar in New Delhi today on bilateral, regional and international issues of mutual interest. Mr. Le Drian arrived in New Delhi last night on a 3-day visit to India. The visiting dignitary will call on Prime Minister Narendra Modi this evening. He will also meet Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change Prakash Javadekar at a panel discussion on climate change. Mr. Le Drian will also participate in the Raisina dialogue. He is scheduled to visit Bengaluru also. India and France enjoy a strategic partnership since 1998, which has been marked by regular high-level exchanges and growing cooperation in diverse areas. Mr. Le Drian's visit will pave the way for strengthening of the partnership across trade, defence, climate, migration and mobility, education and health sectors in the post-COVID context.
Various regions of the country are celebrating the traditional New Year today in the form of Ugadi, Gudi Padwa, Chaitra Shukladi, Cheti Chand, Vishu, Puthandu and Bohag Bihu. According to the lunisolar calendar, the first day of the full moon of Chaitra is the beginning of the Hindu New Year. People of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana call it Ugadi, and in Karnataka it is Yugadi. In Maharashtra it is celebrated as Gudi Padwa, and in Tamil Nadu it is observed as Puthandu. In Kerala the day is celebrated as Vishu, in Punjab it is Vaisakhi, and in Odisha it is called Pan Sankranti. In West Bengal it is called Poila Boishakh, and in Assam Bohag Bihu. President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have greeted the people on the occasion.
In IPL cricket, Punjab Kings beat Rajasthan Royals by 4 runs at Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai last night. A report.
Chasing a mammoth total of 222, Sanju Samson anchored the run chase and became the first player to score a century on IPL captaincy debut. Samson could not finish the match as Punjab Kings PBKS won the match by 4 runs. Arshdeep Singh defended 13 runs in the final over, keeping Rajasthan Royals RR at bay. Earlier, Samson won the toss and elected to field first. The decision did not work in RR's favour as PBKS posted 221 for 6 in the first innings. It was a 105-run partnership for the third wicket in just 46 balls between skipper KL Rahul and Deepak Hooda that propelled them to a massive total in allotted 20 overs. Rahul smashed 91 of 50 balls while Hooda's 64 of 28 balls was a treat to all the viewers. Rahul earlier added 67 for the second wicket with Chris Gayle, who hit 28 ball 40 to show glimpses of his form. West Indian Gayle meanwhile became the first batsman in the history of Indian Premier League to hit 356s when he dispatched Ben Stokes' delivery out of the ground in his first over. In the game number 5 at Chennai tonight, it will be first game winner Kolkata Knight Riders versus defending champions Mumbai Indians. Other sports news, Indian men's hockey team outclassed Argentina 3-0 to complete second win in as many days in Buenos Aires on Monday. India will play 2 more friendly matches against Argentina on April 13 and 14 in Buenos Aires before they resume their FIH Pro League matches against Great Britain on May 8 and 9 in London. Even if chances of Polish city of Kyivs getting locked down because of new wave of COVID-19 cases, Indian youth men's and women's boxers are gearing up for World Boxing Championship starting today. The Boxing Federation of India is fielding a 20-member squad, including 10 in girls category, in the season's first global competition. AIR News Sports Desk.
Now let us take a look at the weather forecast for today. National capital Delhi is likely to have a partly cloudy sky with the temperature rising up to 39 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperature recorded was 18 degrees. Mumbai, Chennai and Kolkata are also expected to have partly cloudy sky. The maximum temperature in Mumbai will be around 35 degrees while the minimum was 25 degrees. In Chennai, temperature will rise from a minimum of 28 degrees Celsius to a maximum of 35 degrees. Kolkata recorded a minimum temperature of 26 degrees Celsius and maximum may move up to nearly 38 degrees. Srinagar will have partly cloudy sky becoming generally cloudy towards afternoon or evening. The city will witness temperature rising from a minimum of 8 to a maximum of 20 degrees Celsius. Jammu will have mainly clear sky becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. Temperature will move from 18 degrees Celsius to a maximum of around 34 degrees. Leh, Gilgit and Muzaffarabad are expected to have a partly cloudy sky. In Leh, minimum temperature was -3 degrees Celsius and the maximum will be around 10 degrees. In Gilgit, the temperature will rise from a minimum of 8 degrees Celsius to a maximum of 24. In Muzaffarabad, the maximum temperature will be around 26 degrees while the minimum was 12 degrees. Dehradun will witness mainly clear sky becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. The temperature will hover between 17 and 36 degrees Celsius. Chandigarh is likely to have a generally cloudy sky with temperature moving from 22 to 38 degrees Celsius. And in Hyderabad, rain or thunder showers would occur towards evening or night. The temperature may rise from a minimum of 26 degrees Celsius to a maximum of around 36 degrees.
And now an overview of today's newspapers. All the dailies have covered on its front page headline about India getting its third vaccine as the subject expert committee clears Sputnik V. The Hindu writes, as cases surge, panel approves Russia's Sputnik V vaccine. The Times of India reports Covaxin, Covishield both work against the UK strain, according to a study by the ICMR researchers. The Pioneer reports the ban of meal services on flights to minimize the risk of COVID-19 situation under the headline, No Meals in Less Than 2 Hours Flight. With the biggest one-day drop in 2 months, stocks slump nearly 3.5% on lockdown fear, notes the Economic Times. Hindustan Times writes, NDA government pushes more ordinances than UPA in 10 years according to a data. 5 new animal species discovered in Tibet is a report in The Statesman, challenging the long-held view that the Himalayan mountains are a desolate and lifeless region. And finally, easily the biggest moment for the sport in changing the face of golf in Asia. Newspapers have all captured the news of Matsuyama becoming the first Japanese man to don the Masters green jacket.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate prestigious Raisina Dialogue today. Expert panel of Central Drug Regulator recommends emergency use authorization of Russian vaccine Sputnik V. Over 37 lakh doses of COVID vaccine administered on the second day of Tika Utsav across the country. Negative RT-PCR test report mandatory to enter Kumbh Mela. Health Ministry issues guidelines to prevent corona in Mela. Airlines not to provide meals in domestic flights with a duration of less than 2 hours in view of rising corona cases. Sushil Chandra to take over as the Chief Election Commissioner of India today. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to hold talks with his French counterpart in New Delhi today. Traditional New Year festivals of Ugadi, Gudi Parva, Chaitra Shukladi, Cheti Chand, Vaishakhi, Vishu, Puthandu, Vaishakhi and Bohag Bihu being celebrated in different parts of the country. And Punjab Kings beat Rajasthan Royals by 4 runs in IPL cricket. And with that, we end the morning news. Have a nice day.